In this video, we're going to be talking about the differences between a CPA or a tax professional and a bookkeeping professional. What's up, guys? My name is Benjamin Day with Lionshare Bookkeeping, the landlord CFO, and today we're going to be helping real estate investors figure out whether or not they need a CPA or a bookkeeper or both or neither. And I want to begin to pull this apart by saying that I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax professional. I don't do taxes. We work with dozens of almost 100 now, actually. It's super cool. Almost 100 different real estate investors across the country. And I have never filed a tax return for a client. I've filed my own, and then I thought that was a bad idea and hired a CPA, and here we are. This is not a how to do your own taxes speech. This is a why you need different people for different roles in your company speech. So let's get into it. Easily the most common thing that we run into when we're dealing with a new real estate investor and really kind of the number one question that we get from brand new investors, folks that aren't used to businesses, is this. Every time they'll ask, "Hey Ben, I feel like my CPA already does this. Why should I use you and my CPA? Or am I using you or my CPA? Like, how does this work?" And for that, I really kind of want to begin to pitch some different ideas, because ultimately we believe that you should have both. We believe that you should be using a tax professional, either a certified public accountant and a CPA, or an enrolled agent with the IRS, which is known as an EA. And the differences between those don't really matter, but the point is that they are certified to file taxes on your behalf. They understand tax law. But we also believe that you've got to leverage that person appropriately, right? You don't just want to give that person any old job. They'll burn out, they'll hate you, they'll put you on the back burner. Like, nobody wants that. So we want to make sure that you're leveraging that relationship effectively. But the answer is you should be using both. You should have both parts of that process down and then some. And so we really kind of want to help unpack this. The first way to begin to think about using a CPA versus a bookkeeper is to think about the relationship between a doctor and a nurse. And what I want you to hear in this is that the last time you went to the doctor's office, if you've been going regularly, your visit probably went something like this. You showed up to the office, you met the lady at the front desk or whoever at the front desk, you checked in, you filled out a whole bunch of paperwork, again, because that's what you do every time you go to the doctor's office. They take the paperwork, they process it, they save it, they're doing all kinds of work. From there, you get called back to a room and a nurse shows up. And that nurse has all of your paperwork and then proceeds to ask you a billion more questions. And they're getting in the weeds. They're being very particular about the questions they're asking. They're following up. They're documenting everything. They're writing everything down. Then they say, "Okay, doctor will come see you here in a minute." And then you wait for a while. The doctor finally swings around. They've got the same information. They've got all the nurse's notes. They've got the clerk's notes. They sit there and they talk to you. They talk to you for maybe 10 minutes, and then they're out and they're done and they're gone. And they've diagnosed you. They wrote you a script. You're out the door. You say goodbye to everybody, and that's the process. This could be your relationship with your CPA. What this could be is a relationship where you walk in and you have the most powerful and meaningful 10 minutes with your CPA that you've ever had. And you could go longer, but you don't really need to, because they've immediately solved your problem. Meanwhile, your CPA is really hoping that you have completely and totally given them all the information to diagnose your problem. That is where the bookkeeper comes into play. So what we like to say is that the bookkeeper is the nurse and the clerk in this situation. They're the people that are taking your temperature. They're weighing you in. They're asking you if you're allergic to anything. They're doing all of this information gathering up front and consolidating it onto just a couple pieces of paper so that the doctor can come in and make an assessment and make a decision. That is what we like to see in this relationship. Fundamentally, because doctors are expensive. Like, if you've ever tried to buy an hour of a doctor's time, you're talking about major money in that situation. And this is something that you probably don't want to do. And what we see most often happen with clients that have never used a bookkeeper or been using a bad bookkeeper is that CPA then has to come back, bill the client for that particular cleanup of their books. Like, we got to go back through your records and fix it all. And they're not exactly cheap. They're definitely going to bill you their hourly rate if they have to clean it up, or they're going to bill you their assistant's hourly rate plus a markup. And that you just get into some pretty pricey waters fairly quickly if your books aren't done and done right. And you're hoping that the doctor is going to do everything that the nurse should have done in the first place. And so whenever we're thinking about building this relationship, we want to make sure that we have both, because that doctor is really great at medical knowledge. Your CPA, your EA are going to be really great at tax law and helping you plan your tax situation, right? Meanwhile, your bookkeeper should be really great at taking all of the thousands of bank transactions and all of your Starbucks trips and all your Home Depot trips and putting them on 3 sheets of paper so that the doctor can make their best assessment, so that the CPA can do the best thing that they can do with your taxes. That is really the relationship that we're going for here in a nutshell. And I could go on with this, example, but instead we're going to go to our second example on this list, which is going to a doctor and then getting a second opinion. So in a normal situation where you've got a doctor and a nurse, it kind of makes sense. Like everybody's on the same team, everybody's playing ball. And when you get a second opinion from a doctor, everybody can still be on the same team. They're still on your team. They still want you to feel better and get the best care. What's tricky about a second opinion is that you're looking for that second opinion because you didn't really trust the first guy. And I really love this. Honestly, this is the lane that I love to occupy. It's the lane of the second opinion. We don't want to do tax law. We don't know tax law, but we know real estate. We know the tax side to real estate pretty in depth as far as the general form and function. We know the financing side of real estate very in depth. And what we can do as the bookkeeping, provider for a company is we can make sure that everybody's kind of getting the best of both worlds in their tax plan. And then you can then take our work to that CPA, and that CPA can say, hey, your bookkeeper doesn't know what they're doing, fire them. Always a possibility. What's also a possibility is that you can come to us and say, hey, our CPA said X, Y, and Z. And I can say, did you ask about whatever? Did you ask about carry back and carry forward losses? Did you ask about accelerated depreciation? Did you? And help you begin to kind of thread the needle of tax law, especially if your CPA isn't the most personal person, they aren't the most outgoing, they aren't the most proactive, or if you're really not sure that they actually know real estate the way that they know real estate. If you've got these doubts, it is awesome, either direction, whether you don't trust your bookkeeper or you don't trust your CPA. It's great to have somebody who knows your industry so well that they can operate as that second opinion, and that can cut both ways. We really love this situation because it keeps us accountable. It doesn't put your whole faith in some guy that can't get a haircut. And it also doesn't put your whole faith in some CPA that you got from a friend of a friend, and you're not really sure if they really know their stuff or not. This is the way that you are the most protected in your finances and in your taxes, by having that second opinion. Number 3 on how a CPA is different than a bookkeeper is we really want to kind of analyze this from the position of having a construction manager versus having a subcontractor. And this is really where I want to get in the weeds, especially with larger firms. What you'll encounter with a larger accounting firm typically is that you'll have somebody that's in charge of the relationship. Boom. Done. That's the person that you talk to. And then there's somebody that's in charge of the bookkeeping, the transactions. They do it all in-house. Boom. Okay, cool. But then you go and you talk to that person that's handling the transactions because you got a question and they don't know the answer. They got to put you on hold and they got to pass you up the chain. Or you go talk to the relationship manager about a transaction or a question or a big picture strategy, and they don't have the answer because they have to put you on hold and go find somebody that really knows what you're talking about. And what we're finding with this is very kind of reminiscent to having a GC or having a construction manager, somebody who is in charge of seeing the whole picture, but then they employ a big team in order to facilitate the itty bitty pieces. And I don't have a problem with that. Our bookkeeping process involves a 3-person structure always. Somebody that's handling the grunt work, somebody that's handling the minute accounting work, and somebody that's handling the strategy. That's the system that we use, and we're very tight knit about that. We make sure that we're all on the same page. We're doing retraining and the whole nine. That's not really the issue for us. The issue is that we're doing all of that in one particular focus, like a subcontractor. We know that what we're doing is a kitchen remodel. All we do are kitchen remodels all day. All we do is bookkeeping for real estate all day. That is our bread and butter. We live and breathe that. That's all that we're doing, right? And we like to operate more with that subcontractor mindset. I'm not asking you if I can paint the house. I'm not asking you to cut the grass. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I have a very specific skill set that we're honing in on. Meanwhile, a larger construction manager or a GC might be willing to bid out a whole project. Even if they don't really have the skill set to do the whole thing, they're counting on the fact that it's easy for you to go with one solution instead of two to win you their business. And that means that the paint might be great, but the drywall is atrocious, that the flooring didn't get done right. It might mean that your project is delayed by weeks and weeks because they don't do that one thing, which means they don't really have a good source, or like maybe their vendor dries up and now suddenly you're delayed because that's not the one thing that they do and they weren't prepared for that wrinkle. And so when we begin to think through building your accounting and finance team, this whole CPA and bookkeeper conversation can also turn into big firm or individual pieces conversation. We really like individual pieces. Obviously, I'm biased, but we like individual pieces because I know that if I lose a bookkeeper, I know exactly where to go find one tomorrow. I can find them in triplicate. We can hire them and train them and get them spun up inside of a week, and everything is gravy. Meanwhile, if it's a CPA firm that kind of does it all, they may have a much harder time finding that one piece that they're missing. And they may have to ask somebody else on their team to cover that piece in the meantime. That person may not be great at their job. And now we've got systemic issues with people management and the whole nine. So we really, really like being the bookkeeping professional in a bookkeeper CPA relationship. We really like being the second opinion. We really like being the nurse. We really like being the subcontractor, having a very narrow focus that everybody else can begin to riff off of and really stay in their lane. The fourth bonus tip here then that I want to give is that when you think about a CPA and all the study that they have to do and the continuing education credits, and they all have to take all these certifications and all of these tests, that's all great. Bookkeepers have to do some of that too. And bookkeepers have the option to do all of that as well. But the deal with a CPA is that their best skill set is probably in study and practice. It's probably in poring over the tax law, finding all the loopholes and the regulations and the cool things that you can do to bring you the best deal from a tax law perspective. It's probably not filling out forms. They probably didn't become a CPA to fill out forms all day. A bookkeeping professional became a bookkeeping professional to put puzzles together all day. And your puzzles are your financial statements. That is what we like to do. It's what we thrive on doing. And if we can do that piece and then hand a finished puzzle to a CPA so they can analyze it and do the tax law, you're now maximizing a bookkeeper's time and maximizing your CPA's time. They're not going to feel burnout when they talk to you. It's not going to be stressful for them. They're going to know that they're getting a finished set of financial statements. Everything is awesome and they can make a decision. That's really what we like to see in these relationships. So as you're figuring out, CPA or bookkeeper or both or what have you, really analyze how big your business is, what you have going on, and where your weak points are. If your CPA is doing it all, that means you're not getting a second opinion. There's no nurse. They're kind of operating with a GC mindset, and we're really just crossing our fingers that they know what's best. If you're only using a bookkeeper and then filing your taxes personally, that means that you're getting a puzzle, but you might not know the best way to use that puzzle when it comes to the tax law. It's always best to have both. So let me know in the comment section below how you feel about this. Are you using a CPA and a bookkeeper? Are you using only one or the other? What's your experience been like working with a two-man accounting team, being a bookkeeping professional and a tax professional? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.